Really, let's look at the whole situation in its full. Really, from the time that Antonio Brown has arrived in Oakland, we've had him burning his feet in the cryotherapy chamber. We've had him not showing up to certain meetings. We've had him go on with the helmet issue. We've had him post Mike Mayock's fine letter to him, in which Mike Mayock, in that letter, basically warned that any further conduct detrimental to the team could result in more penalties, which essentially upset Mike Mayock that Antonio Brown posted this letter. It upset Antonio Brown that he even got fined. It's a whole host of issues here that basically boiled over yesterday at practice, where the two men had to be restrained and basically engaged in a heated exchange with each other before Antonio Brown wound up being sent home.
When you take a look at this situation with Antonio Brown, what do you see?
Disaster. You know, I credit Mike Mayock for doing the right thing. And we've talked about AB as the player and the impact that he could potentially have on the Raiders because he's such a good player. But there is a big difference between being a great player and a great pro. And AB, since he's become a Raider, has just shown time after time after time, he's not a great pro. And that has really bad impact on your locker room. And I credit Mayock for going, I don't care how good of a player you are. We are not going to allow you to be bigger than the football team, be bigger than me. He called him out on social media and challenged him. Mike Mayock had no choice but to do that.
They all deserve each other. They do. Because Antonio Brown has behaved like a fool for years, leading to the Pittsburgh Steelers saying, just get out. We don't want you here anymore, and they can be better this year without him. Mike Mayock, I mean, I guess he has to send the letter, but as soon as I saw he sent the letter, for procedural reasons, you just said Antonio Brown's not going to take this well. He's going to lash out and go social media because that's what he does. And John Gruden looks like a chump. He looks like somebody who's been punked because last year he got rid of two of the most impactful players in the league. He's going to remake everything and remake the culture and flex by getting Antonio Brown, who behaves essentially like a bum at every turn. He doesn't care anything about his team or his teammates. And the Raiders deserve Antonio Brown and he them.
I suspect he's lost now. I suspect that down the road, Antonio Brown will be asked to give back all the money. And down the road, you know what happens when they cut him loose? The New England Patriots pick him up for nothing.
I don't know what the answer is to this because you are married to him right now with the contract obligation that you do have. But I would anticipate if there is a suspension that this continues to deteriorate over time. It doesn't seem like they're in a good position right now.
He's forcing their hand. He's forcing Mike Mayock's hand if all this stuff is true, if this stuff is happening. He's forcing John's hand. This isn't what they brought him here for. They didn't bring him there to be a distraction. They brought him there to be a game-changing player. And right now, for his availability to be in question for Monday night, that's just unacceptable.
He had a coach in Mike Tomlin who allowed him to be an individual, to do different things away from the field. And he didn't respect that organization enough to not have some of these antics. So you think he's going to go with a first-year GM and Mike Mayock and be respectful and allow Mike Mayock to grandstand or to say things publicly to the media that may shine a negative light on Antonio Brown? No, he's going to bite back.
I mean, he came into this thing saying, hey, I could retire if necessary. I don't need football. And now he's basically saying my demands or nothing else. And Mike Mayock is essentially doing what a GM is going to do. I think with him, you had this idea that he's a little bit mocked coming from, where the media side and everything else. But he's doing what you're supposed to do. He played the tough guy role. He laid the law down. And now Antonio Brown is being completely insubordinate.
There's also the possibility that Antonio Brown knows that he can't play as well as he used to. That was a theory that was out there from the beginning, which is that the foot situation never really worked itself out, and he kept coming up with excuses as to why he could not get back onto the field. And if he doesn't think he's ready, and as a result he's just deciding to pop off at every single person in the Raiders, outfit, I can understand where a suspension and keeping him makes sense. But if you're Mayock, there's an outside argument that he botched this from the beginning, and it should have never gotten this far. You can't be in a situation where you're having shouting matches with him in public at this stage. Look, everybody knows who he is, and if you're Gruden and you've got to pick between those two, I would not be stunned if he actually picked the player player over Mayock.
Well, Jeremy, I mean, none of this is actually surprising. You're talking about a guy who once posted to social media Mike Tomlin talking to the team during a playoff game.
For all of you who are out here saying, how could you not see this coming, given that he was addicted to social media in Pittsburgh and doing things in Tomlin's locker room that he shouldn't have been doing? The answer is, you couldn't have seen this coming because nobody has ever entered a welcoming situation the way Antonio Brown has, fighting with management this way, making public messes when he shouldn't be making public messes. What an awful position to be in if you're the leadership of the Raiders. You've given this guy money. You have contract language that will take it away, but if you take it away, you will lose him. And if you lose him, you will then start losing games.
You go through training camp and you put in all that hard work. You're building the team, the foundation. You're building your foundation those hard days in training camp so you have success during the season. And if you're not there during those hard days, I feel like that you're not building the foundation with your teammates. So for me, I would anticipate the teammates just saying, look, if you're not here, we don't need you. We're going to try and do this on our own.
The downside is the collateral damage. The collateral damage is obviously the football team and the quarterback. And Derek Carr, who again has a very short window to prove himself to John Gruden, is going to be without AB now, the guy that he needs to go play really well. So
It's not that hard. This is simple, Simon, in some ways, because it's just human relations. But if it's going to be a science project, he'll be gone. If it's an art project and people really want to work it out, I got to believe that he's still going to be super productive and a long-term player for the Raiders.
I took a lot of heat last year when I came out, and I said he's always been this dude, and now you're just starting to see it, and everybody would see his smile and kind of his charisma and the way he was engaging in that personality and think that meant he was a good teammate, that meant he was a good dude. And I would always say that that's not who he is.
Again, a general manager and a star wide receiver being separated for wanting to go at one another.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports and analysis, download the ESPN app, and for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.